Hello. Today, we'll be going over the new update to my Piggy build mode concepts game. But before we start, I just want to say thank you guys so much for 1 million visits. Seriously, it means a lot to me that you support me and play my game. Since we reached 1M visits, I decided to drop an update of something you guys have been waiting for a while, Multiselect. But before we get to that, there are, of course, some other things I added. Let's start with the team changer block. I know that this is already an official build mode, but I finished coding it before that update came out and there are still some unique features. For example, you create teams by the configure menu, so you can set the name and the color of the team. The other unique feature is that it comes with a team spawn, but we'll take a look at that later. Some things that this game lacks is that people can kill others on their own team and teams with no players still appear on the leaderboard, but I will work on making teamed players unable to harm each other. And, of course, you can check if a player is in a certain team by using the IF gate or advanced if gate. In this case, I use them to make sure that only people on the good team get wrenches. Now, let's take a look at the team spawns. These are also a unique feature. Basically, if you're on a team, you randomly spawn on one of these team spawns that are assigned to you instead of the player spawn. Shout out to FretTheBunny32 because I pretty much added teams exactly the way he suggested them, although I still haven't done a few things he suggested. As you can see, if I reset while neutral, I just respawn on the player spawn. However, depending on what team I'm on, I respawn on one of the corresponding team spawns. Anyways, enough of that, now it's time to address the elephant in the room. The NPCs category is gone. But don't worry. I replaced it with the NPC Spawn, in Events, and the Powered NPC Spawn, in Links, which compact all the settings into one block. Also, I heavily improved the AI pathfinding for bots so they can now jump and are not stopped by a slab. Now let's take a short break from the build server and check out what's new in the custom creators. Let's start with the character creator. The first thing you'll notice is that there's a new template, the blank template. This basically makes the body parts invisible so you can insert your own custom body parts. Then, once you continue with a non-legacy template, you'll soon notice the Select Head Preset button at the top of the screen. If you click it, you are presented with a list of head presets from Piggy. Shout out to GUI, Ketchupman Lollipop, Big Boy Lewis 3788, and Loco Minecraft Motion for suggesting the blank template concept. And now for the head presets. Shout out to Comisking_RBLX, BS_Naji, Zintrix_RBLX1, Asamarki Isolive, Noel, Doug Bug, J Likefer, Dave Loper_fan, Chris Griffin, Tedia Frog, Irish Girl Obrian 12, Little Crosancho, Romain_200, The Internet Dolphin, Dieguis Gamer 0364, and Cordy_7590. But anyways, you can of course recolor and move around parts of the preset. Once you're finished, just press next and set your animations. Speaking about animations, now that we're done with the character creator, let's go to the animation creator and see what's new there. There's only one thing that's new, the camera view button. Basically, when you select it, you can view the animation through the perspective of the camera for jump scare animation so you don't have to constantly jump around from the animation creator to the build server. Shout out to Comisking_RBLX and BS_Naji for suggesting this feature. Now, let's head to the item creator before we go back to the build server. The only new thing here is that when you press Create New, there's a Select Item Preset button at the top of the screen. You can select almost any item from official Piggy and it will load in. I also will be making a functional gun soon, sorry for the wait. Also, you might be wondering why there are items like colored keys and keycards if we already have colorable keys/keycards in-game. Well, it's because when you use the colorable keys and keycards, the tool image just shows a white key/keycard instead of actually indicating which color you're holding. So, using the item presets, the tool icon will show the accurate color. I will make sure to soon add a setting to the locked door and keycard panel that let you use any custom item instead of being restricted to the colorable keys/keycards. Also, once you load in an item preset, you can customize it however you want. Now, let's head back to the build server. Something I did was deprecate the decal block and powerable decal block, so now they have been replaced with the image block and texture block from official build mode since I believe they did it better. However, I was scrolling the Piggy Discord server one day and found a post that was complaining about the tile size being limited to one block, so I added a tile size setting to both blocks. So, even though he didn't directly suggest this to me, shout out to Robert's One Rules for the idea. Also, something else you may have noticed is that the handles look completely different and they now look like they do in official build mode. I also created custom handles for rotating too. However, these handles may not be out yet by the time this video drops. The next block I added is the Infect Block. Once again, this is already in official build mode so it's not really a concept, but since this game doesn't have a skin shop system, the owner sets the character that the player becomes. And yes, this includes custom characters. I'm going to select the floating clowny head skin we made. And as you can see, I turn into the skin when I click the button. Now that I'm an infected, I can't interact with buttons AMD similar links unless they have the usable by infected setting. Now, I'm going to select a skin based on Mickey Mouse that I made a month or two ago. By the way, using the new NPC block, if you turn off the ignored by enemy setting for friendly NPCs, they essentially become dummies that infected players or bots can kill. If you don't want this to happen, just keep the ignored by enemy setting off. And as you can see, when you run into the NPC who is ignored by enemies, nothing happens. But when you run into the NPC who is not ignored by enemies, they die. So that's the Infect Block. Now, let's look at the sign. It's basically the exact same as it is in official build mode, but it allows rich text. This means you can stroke your text, bold it, italicize it, underline it, highlight it, strike through it, and so much more. Now, let's take a look at the new gate, the custom physics gate. It's basically like a second configure gate, but instead of configuring the outward appearance of the blocks, it configures the internal physical properties. You might be wondering, doesn't the configure gate have anchored and collision settings though? Those aren't outward appearance changes. That's exactly why I deprecated those settings. They can now both be found in the physics gate, and collision allows for even more opportunities. The most obvious application of this gate is unanchoring blocks. However, you can also make heavy blocks weightless using the massless setting, and you can make light blocks heavy by increasing the density and density weight. Now let's take a look at collision. You can set which parts the blocks will be collidable to, among players, piggies, and other objects. I'm going to set this pillar to be collidable to piggies but not players. Now aside from the settings we went over, there's also elasticity. Elasticity kind of confused me at first, but I applied them to my Tycoon Maps dropper parts and saw the difference between elasticity at 0 versus 1. It seems like the higher the elasticity, the bouncier the block is. But anyways, back to collision. As you can see, the NPC can collide with it and stand on top since we set it to collide with piggies, but I can't collide with it and I go right through it since we set it to not collide with players. One quick thing, I forgot to go over acoustic absorption, but basically this kind of makes blocks act like the echo barrier block, which we went over in update number 17. The lower this number, the higher reverb you get from the audio collision. Let's move on to the next setting, friction. Probably the only thing people will use this setting for is to make the blocks slippery like ice. If you set the friction to a really low number and the friction weight to 100, it becomes like the slippery block from official build mode. Shout out to KYOKY1 and their Hoagie for inspiring features of this gate. And that's the physics gate. Now, let's move on to the next concept, my favorite one from this update, Multiselect. I sneak peeked this concept over a year ago, but I never released it because I was having problems with it, but now that I am more experienced, I was able to finally complete it. You can enable Multiselect temporarily by holding Shift, or you can toggle it by clicking the button in the bottom left when the Move tool or Rotate tool is equipped, so yes, mobile can use it too. While Multiselect is enabled, if you click on other blocks, they become part of the Multiselect group. You can move them, rotate them, and even duplicate them. But you might be wondering, what if I want to select a relatively big portion of my map? I don't want to have to click on every single block. That's why you can make a selection box. Note that this selection box is only created if the Multiselect button on the bottom left is green. Remember, it can become green by either clicking it or holding Shift. Also, Multiselect does work with undoing/redoing. Also, I'm going to be honest, I didn't do a great job of demonstrating Multiselect in this recording, so here's a different recording that shows more features. Here we have a small little link contraption. I linked 2 levers to the OR gate and the OR gate to 2 link hubs. If I select all of them and duplicate them, as you can see, the links remain for each contraption. Shout out to developer XC, Cien_Carlobox, Keegbum07, Zane873, RAR93, Sprunky_Cool57, Dover62012, JNA_World, 1 Area 11111, and IAmToProWorld for suggesting Multiselect. Now let's move on to another widely suggested concept, models, or custom decorations. Let's load in the tutorial map since it shares a step-by-step tutorial on how to save models. There are 2 resources used to save models, the base and the hitbox. The hitbox is, well, the hitbox of the model and the base is the pivot point. If you don't understand it now, let's look at a few examples. Link the base to the hitbox and then move the base into wherever you want the pivot point to be. For 1-block models, the base can just be in the exact same position as the hitbox. But basically, once you press the save button above the base and choose a name, the model will save all the blocks that are touching the hitbox. And now, you can select the model in the Save tab in the Asset menu. Note that the blocks are still separate when you place them. Let's try making our own model with a well and a chair. Let's also put a barrel on the side. Obviously, when you save the model, only the well and chair will save. The barrel will not save because it's outside the hitbox. But what if we wanted to save it too? Link the hitbox, not the base, to any parts outside of the hitbox to save them as well. Now, if we save again, the barrel will be part of the model, even though it's not within the bounds of the hitbox. Let's get back to the tutorial. Here is a wrench door, and as you can see, the wrench panel is linked to the powered door. So here's the question, when this saves, will the link save too? Only one way to find out. And the answer is yes. Now let's move on to the keycard door. As you can see, the NOT gate and powered gate are under the hitbox. If you save it now, it's not going to work. But if you link the hitbox to both gates and then save, then the gates will save in the model but just be underground. Now let's try making the well event into a model. We made the well event in a previous video, but this time, let's apply our knowledge to save the gates underground. And as you can see, it works. I might make the well decoration an event if something is linked to it in the future. Anyways, that's it for model saving. Shout out to Keegbum07, Zane873, DAV_DinoX, Elimed 2016, Gigantant, Gibson Plays Stuff, Edisbargekapit7, J Pancake, Verified Gangle, and C00 Kid for suggesting some form of model saving. Now, let's move on to the next concept, Leaderstats. The Leaderstat gates work somewhat similar to counter gates, except not quite. Let's start with the regular Leaderstat gate. This just initializes a Leaderstat. As you can see, you can set the name of the Leaderstat, the default value, and the priority. By the way, if you're unaware, a Leaderstat is just a player's stat, e.g. currency, that shows up on the leaderboard. I think the name and value settings are self-explanatory, but let's take a look at the priority setting. This is a more subtle setting, and basically all it does is show which leader stats show first, next to the player's name, and which show later, further from the username. The higher the priority, the earlier it shows up. For example, when we give worse cash a lower priority than cash, worse cash shows up after cash. But when we give better cash a higher priority than cash, better cash shows up before cash. One feature that this gate has that the counter gate also has is that it can be linked to UI text to show the player's leader stat. Note that the text will show up different for everyone since leader stats are individual for each player, unlike counter gates. Now, let's move on to the next gate, the Leaderstat Operation Gate. This works like the counter operation gate, but it doesn't need to be linked to the Leaderstat gate. All you need to do is type the name of the Leaderstat. When activated, it will change the Leaderstat for whoever activated it. And as you can see, anytime I click the button, my cash increases by 2. Now, let's move on to the Leaderstat If gate. Once again, this is kind of like the counter if gate, but the counter gate doesn't need to be linked to it. However, the way the signal works is more similar to an advanced if gate, the activator's player data will be filtered through it. Let's link it to an item spawn block that puts a wrench in the player's inventory and also link it to an operation gate that subtracts 60 cash. So this is basically a wrench that costs 60 cash. The Leaderstat If gate will only activate if the player's cash is 60 or over. Shout out to Bobathebus2, the really jolly scout, and Lotel for suggesting this concept. Now, let's move on to one of the more advanced concepts that came out of this update, the Advanced Modify Gate. This is primarily for UI, so I'll be showcasing that specifically. I'm going to get my alt account since all of the modes for this gate work per player. Let's look at the first mode, Globalize Data. This mode basically makes whatever it's linked to work for everyone instead of only the players who activated it. This isn't necessary for most link blocks since they already have trigger for everyone settings, but it's definitely necessary for UI. We're going to set up a UI with just simple text at the bottom. As you can see, if we normally enable it with a lever, it only shows up for me since I activated it, and it shows up for no other players. However, if we link it to an advanced modify gate with globalized data, it will activate for everyone when I pull the lever, not only me. Now, let's move on to the next mode, toggle output, player specific. I will set up a shop GUI system. There will be an open shop button on the left and a frame with an X button on the top right. To make this work, link both the open shop button and the X button to the advanced modify gate. Then, link the gate to everything inside the shop frame. I'm going to link it to the frame and the X button. And once we run it, both the Open Shop button and X button toggle the frame only for whoever activates it. If we used a regular modify gate with toggle output, multiple players' frames would interfere with each other. Now let's move on to the next mode, not local. This is basically a not gate but, well, local. Let's use it on the UI to show how the UI only disables when you pull the lever. If we use the regular not gate, it would act more globally. But anyways, let's move on to the last mode, and local. For this mode, I'm actually not going to use UI but instead a useful contraption. Have you ever wanted to create keyboard combinations that actually do stuff in this game? You might be thinking, that's already possible. Just connect multiple input triggers to an AND gate. Let's try it with a regular AND gate. I'm going to make Shift plus or reset the character by setting their health to 0. It may seem like it works at first, until you realize that if I press Shift while another player presses R, we both die even though neither of us actually typed the combination. This is where the AND local mode of the advanced modify gate comes in. Basically, this only activates for a player if they activate all of the inputs linked to this gate. So, they cannot activate one input while somebody else activates another, or else this gate will activate for neither of them. So as you can see, now that we're using the advanced modify gate, different players activating different inputs will no longer work. Well, anyways, that was it for today. Thank you so much for watching, and make sure to suggest any other concepts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more videos like this, it would help me a lot if you subscribed and liked the video. Again, I appreciate you watching the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.